Welcome back to Inside Health Education. This is your host, Enrique Hasso, the Associate Director of the Texas Health Education Service in the TMDSAS office in Austin, Texas. We have some excellent insights for you from Dr. Kellaway, the Associate Director for Admissions and Outreach at the Long School of Medicine, on the CASPer assessment. But before we start, we have a quick message. Entry Year 2020 applicants received an invitation to complete the TMDSAS application survey. This is such an important tool to help us assess what works and what we can improve to better serve applicants. Feedback from the survey has helped us create the Application Liaison Program at TMDSAS, where applicant liaisons will walk applicants through the post-application process. It also helps us target topics to discuss on the podcast and help make the application handbook a robust resource. Please take a few minutes and let us know what you think. Without further ado, here's Dr. Kellaway. Joining me today is Dr. Judianne Kellaway at the Long School of Medicine. Dr. Kellaway, thanks so much for coming back.
Yes, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite things to do, is be with you and talk about all the things that pre-meds need to know.
Definitely, and that's why we keep asking you back. And we're so thankful that you keep coming back.
Yes, anytime.
Definitely a friend of the show, as they say. Well, we've got a wide variety of questions coming at you today.
Okay.
And these are mostly fueled by current applicants in our online communities. They're asking questions and questions coming into the TMDSAS office. So first off, we want to discuss the CASPer assessment. And we've heard a lot about CASPer directly from the CASPer folks, but we've never actually talked to a dean about what CASPer looks like on their end and the data points that you all get as an admissions committee about the test. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that this is a good topic and probably great idea to talk about it, because I think we all need to be gathering some information. It's such a new thing. So for people who might not know what it is, but because they haven't applied yet quite, it's computerized online assessment of personal attributes. So I know the first time any of our group heard it, and I bet many people would go, whoa, wait a minute, how are you going to assess personal attributes online? That doesn't seem right. How is that going to work? I would never buy into that. And then as we learned more and more, the admissions teams at all the schools are much more open to it. And several of us, as everybody knows, have started to collect CASPer data. So I think that people know that you log in through your computer and CASPer gives you some situational judgment tests. We call those SJTs. There are some different ways to do that, but they give you some video scenes and also a couple of questions that are just text. And you have a time limit to your responses. Each scenario will have like 3 questions about that scene. Is this okay to talk about this part first? It takes about an hour. They will check your identity through your webcam and all that, and they do spot check to make sure that it's the same person sitting through the entire hour of the test. And they give you a scenario, they say go, and you enter responses in a text box. And then they move you along because those are timed responses. So what they are looking for are a variety of personal attributes: communication skills, empathy, compassion, teamwork, responsibility.
These all sound familiar.
Yes, that's right. All the things that admissions teams are looking for, right? Just what we're looking for. How exactly are they measured? Well, and that's the tricky part. And that's the thing that I think a lot of us who are making the decisions whether or not to use CASPer were impressed with, is the CASPer team has a very robust way of assessing each applicant's experience there. So they have teams of evaluators, and they standardize these things in these tests in big batches. And raters, and all of this is on their website. And I hope I'm not misspeaking. I'm not going to, I'm being careful about what I say so that it's the right thing.
And we'll also include a link to the CASPer website, and they have
Great.
a wealth of resources for
Yes.
applicants and videos
Yes.
about what they do and explaining how the CASPer assessment works.
Yes, that's great. That would be great. So a rater, for example, will only rate scenario number one many times over, hundreds of times, so that they get to be the expert on that. But that's not the only person evaluating scenario or situational judgment test number one. So they have a whole crew of people who are trained to be evaluators. So that's sort of how it works. And so they do averages of averages, and I don't know statistics. I'm not going to say anything because I'll just prove my stupidity there. But we get what's called a Z-score, and people are compared on a scale. Now, in terms of, let's talk about how people are going to use this information. We're not seeing the scenarios. They are confidential. That's copyrighted information that the company protects. So we don't see exactly what's asked. We don't see any of the answers. And that's the first thing that the committee wanted to know was, well, let me look and see what the applicant said. Well, it just doesn't, that's not the information we get. We get a number, a 1.25, a minus 0.75, a plus 2.05. We get these strange numbers.
It's the same like the MCAT, right?
I was just going to say, it's just like that when the new MCAT came across in 3 digits, my goodness, how are we going to deal with this? So CASPer gives us ways that we can look at this information. And there are some schools out there who are going to take those scores and use them to cut off applicants at a certain point, and screen for screening out or screening in, or even to use as interview decisions, right? Well, that would be for the interview decision, but also maybe they use it in their ranking decision. There is also another thing CASPer calls intuitive use of the score. And, if we looked at every single thing that the committee might talk about in one committee day, reviewing, say, 50 people in that afternoon for hours and hours, there are hundreds and hundreds of tiny points of information, some metric data, but hundreds of points of information related to all kinds of things in the application. And I think that what this does for us is it adds a score, it adds a metric number that is very standardized. When that is a very reliable number, everybody, in other words, everybody having that number has had the same experience. Every single applicant, it's like the MCAT. Every single person taking the MCAT has the same experience. That is not true for our interview scores, for example. The MMI tries to bring reliability and consistency to that part of an interview process, but nobody can do the rigorous statistical, whatever that is, application. You can't apply statistics like the MCAT company or the CASPer company can do. So it's a number that we can say is consistent from person to, the experience was consistent from person to person. So I think that in an application process that has a lot of subjectivity in it, it brings a point of reliability. The GPA, we all sort of know what that means. We can look at averages, but what if it's a difficult major or a school that has absolutely 0 grade inflation, So there's a lot of variety when we look at a GPA that we talk about those things. So I think that's what it does for us. And I think at our school, and uh, I'm sure several in the Texas system or the TMDSAS application system will use it intuitively as another point of information that we can sort of rely on its consistency from person to person. So if we're talking about a person and say and one interview is good and one interview is great, but they have a terrific CASPer score, that's going to be one more point in their favor. And when the CASPer people make those presentations, and maybe this is, maybe it is a marketing point, but they tell you, and I believe them. I have to trust what they say. They say that CASPer test is going to work in favor of the vast majority of applicants. Right. So and the other thing that they'll say, I'm going to change subtopics here. Sure. They say that it's really going to put the student in a good light. They say that you can't prepare for it. Mm-hmm. I do think that there are ways that you can prepare, and they may not like this, and they do have a link on their page that says, what you can expect and how should you prepare. I would practice. I would practice with tricky questions, and I would try to practice answering tricky, ethical, situational judgment types of questions. I would go online and Google situational judgment questions or ethical questions for interviews, tricky interview questions. I would Google those kinds of things, and I would start typing in Word or something, just typing answers. They tell us and have shown us statistics that it is not correlated with gender, your primary language. Certainly grammar and spelling do not count in your score. The evaluators are trained to ignore all kinds of things that might affect our ability to give a good answer. But I would practice trying to speedily type. So I think the keyboard, your actions on the keyboard are important, and getting it from your brain to the keyboard are important. So I would just practice those kinds of things.
I think that's also great practice just for a regular interview.
Yes.
Formulating a response that's coherent and something you can answer on the spot.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. This is that personal attribute I call thinking on your feet, yes. Right? Well known to all of us. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I would love to do a lot better.
The 16th core competency.
Is it?
Right.
You're right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I do think you can practice it. And when I talk to pre-med groups and go out to campuses or am on our web chats, I tell people, do not just look at the question. When you get a list of questions, the way to attack that is not to just look at the questions. Okay, because then what you're doing in your brain is, okay, I know the answer to that question. Yes, I know how to answer that one. You have to speak the answer out of your mouth. So it comes from your brain out of your mouth. And that's the way you practice that, in the mirror, with friends, all those things.
Yeah, with JAMP, I've had the opportunity to interview incoming students, and granted that they might be freshmen or sophomores in college, but you can clearly tell who has prepared for an interview.
Yes.
And who just showed up that morning hoping for the best.
Yes, absolutely. You can tell. Mm-hmm. You really can tell in the interview setting. And it might not be a big detriment, right? I think a lot of committees, when we are deliberating, we really deliberate in this advocacy mode or a very positive way, because we understand there are so many great people out there. So, I think what it doesn't necessarily become a negative if you're just sort of averaged and not practiced, but it really can help you have a great interview, which goes a long way to get you to your goal.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting how the integration of CASPer seems to coincide with the definition of the core competencies and this, national push toward holistic review.
Yes.
It just seems like the natural evolution
Yes.
is an assessment like CASPer.
Yes.
And seeing it integrated into the admissions process, not just here at Long School of Medicine, but also at the Texas Tech School of Medicine in Lubbock and UTMB and Texas A&M College of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's the growing presence really speaks for the validity uh, of the data and how important it is for admissions committees to be able to see those different factors in an applicant.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree completely. Initially, I think a lot of us want to say, okay, well, where's the score for communication skills? Where is the empathy score? And while they do have some of their situations developed to try to elicit a particular attribute or two, there's so much crossover that they'll tell you that just can't really be done, which was that makes sense, doesn't it?
That is.
So, yeah.
Right.
I'm excited to see more and more of us use it and share ideas about how we're using it too. So,
Well, I know we were talking a little bit earlier about some changes that are coming for our interviews here.
oh yes,
Yeah, and
yes,
I think this is a great
Good.
segue in talking about holistic review
Good.
and kind
Yes.
of the qualitative aspect of an application.
Yes.
So, would you mind sharing?
No, we're very excited about that. I'm gonna give credit to Carl University. It's Carl Illinois University School of Medicine. I'm so sorry I can't remember the woman's name, but she is the admissions person who you'll see on their sample videos. She gave us a presentation at the AAMC, and they are an MD engineering school. So they're looking for particular attributes of creativity, and they ask people to submit a portfolio of their previous work. And one of the things that they also do is a standardized one-way video interview. And it was fascinating. I brought the several notes from that meeting to committee, and our committee is very excited about the possibility. So this year we're going to pilot a standardized one-way video statement or video interview. I guess it's an interview because we have developed some questions. And we're hoping Carl University School of Medicine presented also some applicant survey information, and it was very well received, very well received, which was a key component for us. We want all applicants everywhere to have a as positive an experience as possible everywhere, because it is such a demanding, stressful process. So we don't want to do that. So we'll be watching our students who volunteer for this. We want to make sure that the survey information from the applicants is going to be positive. We want them to have a positive experience. And we want to try to do that by giving them a lot of information about it. We're going to ask for volunteers this year. Probably somewhere throughout interview day, I'm going to ask for volunteers, kind of reassure people that we will not be looking at this information at all for decision making yet, just like we did with the CASPer last year. So hopefully we'll get some volunteers. I think it would be good practice for anyone who has other interviews to do. And I, again, like the CASPer, I think this is really going to showcase a person's ability to be a professional. We want people to prepare. In our pilot, we are going to give people the 5 questions. They will have 2 minutes for the answer, but they can take as much time as they want. They can take the questions and then tuck it away in their laptop for 2 weeks and work on anything they want that will help them produce a good answer. So we're going to let people bring notes and all that. Once they're prepared and ready to go, then they can hit the button and do a 2-minute presentation of their answer for those questions. And if they don't like it, we're going to give them as many takes as they want. Okay. So it's all unlimited, and we just think that that's okay. We want them to be prepared, and we want it to be their best effort as they see it. And I think it's gonna, what that does for us we have a pretty traditional interview part of our process. And so we're a big school, and we want to interview as many people as possible, which means this is a large number of participants. So we have 100 people interviewing on our campus, including senior medical students. So although our participants are all trained in our mission and our goals and what we're looking for, you can imagine there's a wide variety of responses that we get. So if, for example, we're at committee and we're evaluating an applicant, and one interview is good and one is great, what can we do? Or what if there was a personality conflict, or what if, the applicant just needed to get sort of warmed up, we want to give that person, this acts as sort of another interview, another opportunity where they were practiced and planned and delivered their best in that video setting. So eventually we could then look at that video as well. We would look at all of them, I'm sure, but as sort of a tiebreaker, or look, if somebody said, well, I didn't think that the person was very articulate, or, something a little bit on the negative side, we can go and see what the person has prepared as a professional. So I think it's going to be a very positive addition, and the committee is excited to have that as another positive addition.
Yeah, and I think this really falls in line perfectly with the idea of the interviews. We had a episode of the podcast where we talked to Fernando Vasquez at the Texas A&M College of Medicine, and he was sharing in the roadmap to professional school for seniors that the interview day it's a day. It's not just the 30 minutes of your interview.
Yes.
And so I think this is a really natural extension of that, where you want to have a prepared response. You want to be on your best.
Yes.
Because this is something that's going to be seen by admissions committee. So I think this is a really great opportunity to kind of moderate that as an applicant.
Yes.
Where if you, for some reason, slip up a little bit on your interview day, you're mumbling or you're rambling on in your interview, and you have an opportunity to kind of make up for that.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
Isn't that great?
It is.
Isn't that great? Well, and let's look at the other side. No offense to anybody, okay? But and when I talk on the web chats or speak to pre-med groups out there on the interview topic, yes, you have to be on your toes for the whole day. But there's another slide that I like, and at the top of the slide is like, you have to be prepared for any person or personality to be across from the table. And so if it's a person that you just gel with, and they're smiling and they're nodding and they're friendly and they're seeming to love everything that you say, what a great experience is that. But that's just not going to be 100% of your interview experiences. That's just the truth. So you might have great faculty at any school who are just a little more reserved, who might not be as smiley, and they might just sit there like a potato. That's my other example. You can't let that personality across from you affect your professional presentation and personality in the interview setting. So these video interviews, there's nobody sitting across from you. So you can imagine that this question is asked by a smiling, friendly faculty member who you are just connecting with, and that will help that presentation, right?
Yeah, excellent.
So,
well, before we let you go back to work,
yes,
what can we? Yes. Is there anything else that you wanted to address?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I enjoy being,
Thank you so
being
much
your
for
guest and seeing you. That's always fun.
likewise.
Thank you, Waylon. Shout out to Waylon and the new fancy microphones.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
We're moving on up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. I enjoyed being with you.
Excellent. Thank you so
hope
much
it was
for always
helpful.
being so enthusiastic to help us with this and to address applicants and their concerns.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
This is MedEd Media.